Hello, everybody. Happy marvelous Monday. How's everybody doing today? I hope that you all are well. I am here to share some information today with you. If this is your first time tuning in, let me just say thank you so much. I'm Karissa Spann, the landlord and tenant coach. This is what I do each and every Monday, right here in this Facebook or YouTube channel at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And today, if you have had an opportunity to check out the description, we're going to talk about why it is important for landlords as well as tenants, why they must have skin in the game, while landlords and tenants must have skin in the game. Listen, if I share information today that you find is helpful, please like, please comment, and or share this broadcast, because my goal is to share information with the entire rental community that will make it easier for landlords as well as for tenants. However, the information that I share is not legal advice. However, it is the industry's best practice for landlords. And I'm also sharing information as it pertains to updated laws. So please let me know where you're tuned in from. If you're a landlord or a tenant, I love to know where my viewers are watching from. And if you have questions or comments, I want this to be interactive. I definitely want to answer questions that you have today. So go ahead and drop it in the comment box. If you're watching on my YouTube channel, please make sure that you click that subscribe button so that you'll be the first to know when I am live and online. And so today we're talking about why landlords as well as tenants, they must have skin in the game. Listen, the season has changed. The season has brought about change. All right. So many of you have been following me for a while, and you know that I've talked about the eviction moratorium coming to an end. And I know a lot of you are tired of hearing that word. But here's the thing. I have been getting a lot of calls and emails regarding rental property. There are a lot of rental property that are available in multiple jurisdictions, and landlords are looking for quality tenants. Okay, let me just state that landlords are desperately looking for quality tenants. And so, my goal today is to share information that will possibly help improve upon tenants' quality. So, if there's something that you could do, if there's some information you can get today to make you a better tenant at the next time you're getting ready to rent someone's property, I promise you that the information, whether you use it today or you pack it up in your bag, you put it in your backpack and you take it with you later, it's something that if you apply it may possibly make a difference in your life if you are a tenant. Now, landlords, I understand. Listen, I'm a landlord. I'm a property manager. I've been in property management for well over 28 years. I am a property management educator. I enjoy what I do, right? But I understand that landlords are desperate to find out how they can attract quality tenants. And so this is why it is important today. If you tune in no other time, it's important today to find out as a landlord or a tenant how you can put skin in the game. And if you're a landlord now, and let's say all of your properties are currently occupied, take notes, because at some point you may have a rental that will become vacant, and you want to find out how you can attract quality tenants. So please make sure you're sharing this information today. Why? Because sharing is caring. Sharing is caring. And again, let me know where you're tuned in from so that I can acknowledge you. Hello, Lynette. Thank you so much for tuning in from Charlotte, North Carolina. Charlotte is in the building. All right, Lynette, you said I'll call you about that. All right. What are you calling me about? What's your subject matter? What is your question, Lynette? Let's discuss it. You can call me, but we can talk about it now. So listen, when it comes to landlord and tenant relationships, being a landlord is so much more than collecting money at the beginning of the month. All right. Being a landlord, an effective landlord or a housing provider, is all about managing that landlord and tenant relationship. Okay, I see that, Lynette. Hey, Miss Wilson, thank you so much for tuning in, beautiful. So a lot of landlords who are new to property management, They may not understand the logistics, the ins and the outs of being a really great landlord. Hey, Sade, thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in from North Louisiana. I love it. I love it. So, I'm sharing this information because there are a lot of landlords who are not knowledgeable about running their rental property business. So, whether you own as a landlord, a property manager, a real estate investor, if you own one or multiple properties, it is a business. Whether you inherited the house, whether you bought the house, whether you bought a crack house, it really doesn't matter. It could be a mobile home, it could be a condo. Someone inboxed me and asked if they could rent their RV, right? So, whatever type of property you are renting, it doesn't matter. It is a business. And many of you know my philosophy. If you treat it like a business, it will pay you like a business. If you treat it like a hobby, it will pay you like a hobby. So it is always in your best interest as a landlord to find out what your roles and responsibilities are as a landlord for the jurisdiction that your rental property is in. And so if you're a landlord or property manager, such as myself, I have tenants in multiple jurisdictions. The laws are not the same everywhere. So it is always in your best interest as a landlord to find out what you can and cannot do. And this is the same information that I share with tenants. I want tenants to know and understand that you have responsibilities, but that you also have rights, right? And so some landlords may not be knowledgeable about operating their rental property business, about taking care and the upkeep of rental property. And I know a lot of people say, well, Karissa, that's just common sense, right? Well, we already know that common sense, it may not be so common for everybody. So let's just agree that everybody does not think the same. Their level of education is not the same. Their level of communication is not the same. That's on both sides of the aisle, landlords as well as tenants. So today we are talking about why it is important for landlords as well as tenants to have skin in the game. All right. So again, if you have questions, go ahead, drop it in the comment section so that I can address it. But I do want to get into the discussion today. I promise I will not hold you long. I'm going to share 3 tips for landlords, and I'm going to also share 3 tips for tenants. All right. So when it comes to rental property, here is what I want landlords to know and understand, that tenants are usually now becoming more knowledgeable and educated about their rights, as well as landlords and their rights and responsibilities. So the day, the hour, the season has come where tenants are a lot more knowledgeable. They know what they can and cannot do. They know what landlords can and cannot do. And so, one of the things that I always emphasize when I am coaching landlords is this: treat people fairly, right? Just because people may not look like you, just because the tenant may be in some sort of housing subsidy program, doesn't mean that they're any less of a person. Don't treat anybody any differently, right? I won't even say treat them different. Don't treat them differently than you would treat yourself. Treat everybody in a professional manner. Back in the day, we had this thing, and many of you may know the golden rule: treat people the way that you want to be treated. Sometimes people don't treat themselves right. So I don't even say that anymore. I always say treat people with respect, right? Treat people professionally. Because even if you own, like I said, just one rental property, it is a business. And so you are the professional. You are, as a landlord, you are providing a rental property that must be, according to federal law, decent, safe, and sanitary. Okay. That is what you are offering. You're offering rental housing, but you have to make sure that you're taking care of it. And you also have to take care and manage to the best of your ability that landlord and tenant relationship. Hey, Pete, thank you so much for tuning in. Pete, you're tuning in from Baltimore. Baltimore is in the building. So here are my 3 tips for landlords. The first is this. Here's what I want landlords to know, and that's this: a great landlord and tenant relationship, it directly influences your vacancy and turnover costs. That's first and foremost. So as a landlord, if you are a great landlord, people will give recommendations. People will give word of mouth recommendations based off of the quality of your rental property, how you treat them. And so that's why I'm really placing an emphasis on being a really great landlord. All right. And so when you treat people right, they'll remember you. Listen, true story. I had a young lady. I um I assisted this young lady. Well, she's much older than me. She's much older than I am. I assisted her and her husband back in, I think it was 2000, maybe 2015 or 2016. Um, Maybe much earlier than that. But at any rate, I ended up I managed the property. I found tenants for her. And then at the point where she was relocating out of the country, I sold her property as a real estate agent. I sold her property. And she came back and she contacted me. She doesn't have rental property anymore in the United States, but she remembered the service that I provided. She remembered the quality that she received. Here's the thing: people may not remember your name, they may not remember what you say, but people will always remember the experience and how you make them feel. And so she contacted me to let me know that she was back in the United States. She has someone that's looking for tenants. She emphasized that, Karissa, I just remembered how well you took care of me and my husband and the property. I have someone who needs your help. Listen, that's an easy referral. Absolutely. So that was a connection. I wasn't even advertising, I wasn't marketing my services, but that just goes to show people will remember you. So never take for granted that people don't appreciate you when you are doing the right thing. So let me just state that. So that's the first tip that I do want to share. All right. Hello, Kimberly. Thank you so much for tuning in from South Carolina. Hello, Mr. Ricks. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for tuning in from Chesapeake, Virginia. Pete, your comment says they remember how you make them very important. Absolutely. You treat everybody with respect, treat everybody professionally, make them feel like they are the most important person in the world, because I promise you that at some point in life it will come back. And so essentially you're sowing seeds, right? So when you sow seeds, something will grow out of that. Something will come out of that relationship. All right, so here is my second point that I want to share. The better relationship that you have with your tenant, your renter throughout the rental lease term, the more likely it will be for them to renew. You'll have less tenants wanting to move out, right? So what does that mean? That means at the end of that lease term, let's say for instance, Kim, you're in South Carolina. You're a landlord in South Carolina, and you have, Kim, I know that you manage a lot of rental property in South Carolina, right? So Kim, I'm going to use you for instance. Let's say you have a tenant. They've been at your rental property for a year, and they give you a notice that they are thinking about vacating or leaving in 60 days, right? But then you have another tenant who has been there much longer. They appreciate you. They value how you have made them feel. You've taken care of repairs at the rental property. You always treated them with the utmost respect. They are more likely and inclined to stay versus leaving or vacating. And here's the thing: sometimes tenants will want to vacate if at the renewal of that lease term, you're proposing to increase the rent. Sometimes tenants will stay, although they don't really want a rent increase. Or maybe they will negotiate not increasing the rent as much, but they're willing to stay because you are a good landlord. And so that's why it's so important for landlords to understand how to best handle and manage these relationships with tenants. It's not just managing a property, it's about the relationship. All right. Can I get everybody to agree with me on that? I got you, Pete. How you make them feel. Hello, Miss Davis. Thank you so much, ma'am, for tuning in DC. DC is in the building. Okay, so here is my third tip for landlords, and then I'm going to give 3 tips for tenants as well. All right, so here's a third tip for my landlords tonight. Having a great relationship with your tenant, it guarantees that you are more approachable. Listen, if you're this great person, you communicate well with your tenants, you're not snappy, you're not nasty. Tenants are they're really in a posture, and they're comfortable communicating. You don't really have an issue with tenants because they can trust that when they come to you, you're going to handle the repairs. You're going to make them feel valuable. You're not going to look down on them. And when you have tenants who feel that way, I promise you that that makes you more approachable. You will be more likely to hear about issues promptly versus a tenant not contacting you to report your maintenance issues that are going on in the property. So here's the thing. Sometimes if a tenant has a really good landlord, they'll let you know, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, my faucet is running in the kitchen, or the toilet is leaking, or the toilet is running. They will promptly notify you versus you being a nasty landlord. And the tenants take the attitude to say, oh, well, it's not my property, so I don't care. So let's take, for instance, that leaky faucet or the toilet that's running, right? That's somebody has to pay that water bill. And if it's the landlord's responsibility to pay the water bill, you've treated the tenant like crap. They don't care that the water is running. They don't care that the toilet is overflowing. They don't really care about the property because at the end of the day, it's not their responsibility. It's the landlord's responsibility. And so if you are treating tenants right, they will more often than not contact you right away to say, hey, Kim, hey, Mr. Ricks, hey, Karissa, my toilet is running. Can you get somebody out here to take care of it? Pete, they're going to call you right away because they recognize that you care about the property, right? And so tenants value landlords who value them and the rental property. And so those are the 3 tips that I wanted to share for the landlords. Thank you so much for tuning in, Rochelle. All right. Kim, you said yes, job security. Absolutely. That's what it's all about. It's all about job security. Those are facts, right, Pete? All right. So let me share 3 tips for tenants because I want this to be not just for landlords, but I want to share information for tenants as well because tenants, I believe that some tenants, here's the thing that I recognize. Tenants will do things for 2 reasons, because either they don't know or because they don't care. So this is why I share this information. And this is what I do every Monday. It costs nothing to show up to get this information. Hey, Lauren, thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in. You said you just started renting and told the landlord the toilet is running, the faucet leaks on, and check in. Listen, I know someone who lived in a really beautiful house. They were renting this house in Charles County, Maryland, and the landlord did not respect them. The landlord treated them like crap, right? And so when they first moved into the rental property, they told the landlord about some things that were going on. They heard water leaking or dripping behind the wall. But the landlord never came out to make any repairs. The landlord never did anything. So they would go into one of the rooms and the lights would just turn on by itself. Like the light switch would be off, Pete, but somehow the lights would turn on by itself. And so the tenant reported it to the landlord. The landlord never came out to make the repair. They never sent the electrician. And was that the tenant's responsibility or was it the landlord's responsibility? Something like that, that will fall on the owner because that was a pre-existing condition that was happening before the tenant moved in. And although the tenant moved in and was responsible for most of the repairs, as a landlord, let's just be integral, do the right thing. Okay. So if you have a tenant who moves in, obviously it's not the tenant's fault that some jackleg alley cat electrician, maybe their Uncle Pete, sorry, Pete, maybe their Uncle Pete, got a pack of cigarettes or a bottle of Mad Dog and, just Jimmy rigged it or whatever. Listen, it doesn't matter. If it's not right, make sure that it's decent, safe, and sanitary. As a landlord, let's be integral and do the right thing. Don't hold that against the tenant if you know that was a pre-existing condition, right? So this tenant reported the issues to the landlord. The landlord didn't come out to make the repairs. And so the water started to drip. And the water, the faucet was leaking in the kitchen. It was leaking in the bathroom. And so the tenant knew they were going to move out. So it just didn't matter. They let their water bill accumulate and it continued to increase and go up. But see, here's the thing about the water bill. In many places, in many jurisdictions, correct me if I'm wrong, if this is happening or not happening in your jurisdiction where you have rental property, the water bill is connected to the rental property. So if a tenant leaves, Let's say a tenant just vacates or skips and doesn't pay that water bill. That landlord, the owner, is still responsible, especially if the tenant's name is not on that water bill. And if the water bill is not paid, what happens to a water bill that's not paid? Some of my landlords on here, I see quite a few landlords. What happens when a water bill is not paid on rental property? I want somebody to help me out here. Pete, you said sometimes treating them right doesn't matter. It's more of their character. Pete, I can agree with you on that. You said all those leaks should have been checked before anyone moved in. I definitely agree. And so that's why I'm sharing this information today, Pete, because you and I, we know that, but there is somebody watching today. There is somebody that's going to watch the replay and they don't know that. They will allow tenants to move in with these pre-existing conditions. Hello, Victor Blackwell. You said poltergeist. What are you talking about, sir? Pete, I'm sorry, I did use your name, Uncle Pete. Mr. Ricks, you say glad that you do your own work. Listen, and that's a plus. That's a benefit. So here's the thing. Like I said, when a water bill is not paid, usually, depending on the jurisdiction, that city, that state, that county, the water department will put a lien on the rental property. They will put a lien on the property, meaning that if the owner ever tried to sell the property, they would have to take care of that that lien. They would have to pay that money. Absolutely, Rochelle, you got it. They'll put a lien on the property. It has happened. I had a client, true story. I had a client. I managed her property in DC. It was a single family home, and the tenant did not pay the water bill. The tenant consistently, Rochelle, did not pay that water bill. The water bill went up to $1,000, to $2,000, to $3,000. So the water company, they shut the water off. Now, this was years ago, but after they shut the water off, the tenant had somebody to go in and turn the water back on illegally, never paid the bill. And so that put the owner in a really bad place because the water company was upset that the water usage continued to increase, and they held that owner responsible. And so fortunately, I was able to help this owner mediate the situation and get it taken care of. And I was also able to provide resources for that tenant so that that tenant wouldn't be out on the street. Hello, good evening, Sissy. Happy Marvelous Monday. Thank you so much for tuning in from New York. New York is in the building. Okay, Vic, you said the movie Poltergeist when the lights were coming on by themselves and the shelves were opening and closing, but it must have just been by the maintenance man, Bookman. Well, listen, in that situation, Vic, that was not the story, okay? The lights, it had nothing to do had nothing to do with poltergeist. I promise you. It was a shady, shisty type of electrician who did not know what they were doing. All right, so let me get into the tips for tenants. I want to give 3 tips for the tenants. I've already given tips for the landlord. All right, so here are my tips for the tenants. If you are treating landlords right, you're communicating with your landlord, you're a good tenant, you're a quality tenant, landlords will be more likely to address your issues promptly versus not wanting to come to do repairs. And I get it. They're supposed to do it. But at the end of the day, usually, and anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, usually if you're nasty to somebody, nobody wants to deal with that. You know, if you're disrespecting them and you're cussing them out and you're telling them what they should and shouldn't be doing, whether you're right or wrong, nobody really wants to deal with that. I had a situation, true story. I think it was within the last month or so. I had a tenant. She called me. She had a roof leak, right? And I contacted the owner. It's a property that I manage. So I contacted the owner to say, hey, the tenant, she's contacting me about a roof leak. It's currently raining at the moment, but I'm going to get a roofer there as soon as we can, right? So I told the tenant, listen, it's pouring down raining at this particular moment. I can't get anybody to go on the roof because it's raining, and because it's still raining, it's going to leak inside the home. So within a matter of not even 2 hours, I contacted the roofer. I met the roofer there. I went with a bucket to see, okay, if it was still raining, I wanted to make sure that as best as I could to my ability to minimize the damage from the interior. I'm not a shifty property manager or landlord. That's not what I do. So I put on my boots, put on my rain jacket, got my umbrella. We headed over to the property. By the time I got there, the roofer was out back with his ladder. Okay. Now it had just finished raining, so the roof was wet. He was on top of the roof cleaning the gutters. So I acted promptly. Not it had not even been 2 hours. Had the roofer to clean the leaves from out of the gutter. Obviously, the leaves hadn't been cleaned in like 3 years or something like that, he said. Now, this is a new property that I took on. So I got there, I greeted the tenant, hey, Miss Tenant. And she, can I tell you, she was like so nasty. I mean, she was just, she was nasty for no reason. And it's like she wakes up on the wrong side of the bed. And I get it. I talk about mental health. Y'all know I talk about mental health frequently. And so this young lady, she has some mental health issues, and everything is always amplified. If it's a leak, she would make it seem like the roof is about to fall on her head. I'm like, well, it just started leaking like an hour and a half ago. I called the roofer. I'm here myself, came with the bucket. I'm here to mediate the problem. Like, she's like, I mean, she gave the impression that she was going to call the president of the United States. She was going to call CNN and report the issues. I'm like, lady, it just happened. I'm here right away. And it's it makes for a bad situation. It makes for a really bad relationship. And so why am I sharing this information? Because I want tenants to know, I want tenants to recognize and understand that your behavior, the quality of your character, it weighs in a lot on how people deal with you. All right. So please make sure that you are respecting landlords, especially if you have a landlord who's good, like me. Okay. If you have a good landlord, work with them. Don't make their job hard, but definitely do communicate what your issues are, especially if you have maintenance concerns or complaints. Here's my second tip for tenants. Landlords are more forgiving when it comes to rent payment. If I have a quality tenant and they pay me rent late, you know what? I may skip the late fee. I may say, you know what? It's okay. I may work with them to say, okay, well, if you can't pay it on the first, when it's due, let me just park here. Let me park right here. If the rent is due on the first, that means your rent should be in by the first of the month, not the second, not the third, not the fourth, not the fifth. The rent, if in your lease, which is a legally binding contract, it is a legally binding contract. If you sign a contract saying that you're going to pay your rent on the first, please make sure your rent is paid on the first. Okay. Now, if I have tenants who are late, and it happens all the time, right? No big deal. I've been in the industry for a long time, almost 3 decades, although I don't look that old. I know. Thank you. But I digress. If you are a tenant who respects your landlord and you pay your rent late, sometimes they may say, okay, well, you know what, Mr. and Mrs. Tenant, thank you for notifying me. Thank you for letting me know that you're going to pay your rent late. They may ask, well, when do you think you're going to be able to make the payment? And even if they don't ask you when you're going to make that payment as a tenant, just go ahead and let them know, listen, I don't have the money, or I won't have the rent money by the 1st, but I will have it into you by the 7th or the 8th or the 12th. I had a tenant. He contacted me, I think it was Thursday of last week. So this is month 2. He hasn't paid his rent. So whenever I see him, I'll be like, hey, you got some money for me? He'll be like, oh, no, I don't have no money. He told me he had a situation. Someone robbed him, beat him up, and took his money. And I reminded him, like, that was last month. Okay, this is a different month, unless you're telling me that somebody did the same thing to you again this month. And so I just had to gently let him know, listen, I'm going to need you to get some rent money in here, because I would really hate to have to evict you, right? And so can I take him to court right now in the jurisdiction that he lives in? I can't take him to court right now, but it's nothing that stops me from giving him the notice, the paperwork, and putting things in motion. So, but that's the one thing that as a quality housing provider, that's the one thing that I really hate to do. Evicting tenants is so hard for me, but then sometimes if it's a bad tenant, I would be the first to say, right, wrong, indifferent, whatever. If it is a bad tenant, if it's a nasty tenant, if it's a disrespectful tenant, I really don't care about doing my job, because it's my job to make sure that I am treating it like a business. And at the end of the day, nobody can live rent free, right? Bills have to be taken care of and paid. Taxes have to be paid. Utilities have to be paid. Contractors who go out to make the repairs. See, I'm not like Mr. Ricks. I don't take care of the maintenance. I mean, some things I can do. For instance, some of you may have seen a video floating around where I actually fixed a kitchen faucet in a dress with my tube belt on. Some things I can do, but at the end of the day, it's not my job to take care of maintenance repairs. All right. So I have to pay people to do these things. And even if I can do it, I still, me being integral, me being the person that I am, I want to make sure that all work is completed satisfactory. So I don't want, you know, a partial repair. I don't want a partial fix. I want to make sure when the repairs are made, that it's made correctly the first time, because I hate more than anything to have to send somebody back to take care of the same problem more than once, because that's a waste of time, that's a waste of money, and I don't like to waste time or money. All right, so I'm gonna pause. I'm gonna go to some of the comments, and then I'm gonna come back to my third and final tip. Okay, Pete, you said you've seen higher water bills and they're still on. Listen, in some jurisdictions, it just depends. Some water bills are through the roof and the water company won't turn it off. But in some other places, the water company will shut that water off quick, fast, and in a hurry. All right, Pete, you said you know a tenant who has a water bill over $4,000 and the water is still on. Well, so at this time, and especially because of COVID, a lot of utility companies are not able to turn off utilities. They're not able to turn off electric or gas or water. And so that's the situation in a lot of jurisdictions. So, but for tenants who are in those type of situations, if you feel like you're in a pickle, understand that there are resources available. At the end of the day, the bill has to be paid. All right. Owner tells me that it will cost him more to evict her. It's a Section 8. He's still getting money. Okay. So that's true. So sometimes landlords don't want to evict, or maybe they won't evict because it may cost them more money. But here's the thing: if it's a quality tenant and you can work that situation out, go ahead and work it out, because it's cheaper to keep them versus having to take them to court. Pete, oh, you're commenting, you're laughing at my comment about my tube belt. Listen, Pete, I'm gonna send you the video. It's on YouTube somewhere. But yeah, on YouTube, one of my videos I show where someone recorded me making a repair. I actually fixed a faucet. It was a leaky faucet in the kitchen. I went in to do an inspection, and I was waiting on, I think that tenant was in some sort of housing subsidy program, Pete. I didn't have a maintenance person around me or available right away and to come, to take care of the repair. And so I usually have on a tube belt. I know some of you have seen my pictures, but I do have a tube belt. I have custom tools with my name on it. I am a handy woman. I will do what I can do. So I was in the rental property and I realized that I had an inspection coming up. I did not want that unit, that rental property, to fail inspection. So yes, I took care of the repair while I was there. I didn't have time to call anybody. I had to make sure that we got it done, and I did what I had to do. So yes, I have a tube belt, Pete. I have a hammer. I have screwdrivers. I have a whole bunch of stuff in my tube kit. Hello, Dr. Baker. Thank you so much for tuning in. You said, "Good evening, sis. You don't want Pookie and them doing patchwork." I don't. I really don't. Pete, you said far from quality. You talking about the work that I provide? Are you talking about the repairs that I make is far from quality? I know you didn't just go there, Pete. Go ahead and clean it up for me. All right, that tube belt is clean as a whistle. I promise you, my tube belt, Pete, is not. Okay, don't come for me. All right. All right, so let me go to my phone because I have some text messages that have come in. So the question is, if you pay for repairs that your landlord is supposed to fix, can you ask to be reimbursed or money off the rent? That's a great question. If you are comfortable communicating with your landlord, and if you have a situation where, as a tenant, you're making repairs out of pocket, first and foremost, make sure that you have clear communication and clearance from your landlord. So don't just pay for the repair and be like, oh, well, Mr. Miss Landlord, I paid for the door hinge that you never fixed, so take $90 off my rent. Have that conversation up front. Look at what's in your lease, and that's a great question. People do that a lot. Tenants do that a lot. They think that, oh, well, since I paid for it, I'm going to get a deduction off my rent. Let me just tell you how I am as a housing provider. If it is in the contract where tenants are able to take care of repairs, then I may be a little flexible, but then that also depends on the type of repair. It also depends on what needs to be done, because I'm not going to have a tenant that will pay or allegedly pay $400 to repair, let's say, a light bulb, right? Because I don't change light bulbs. I manage too many rental properties to go out or to send people to change a light bulb. So if a tenant say, well, Karissa, I paid, I paid, I paid someone to come and change all the light bulbs because they needed to be replaced, or I paid someone to come in to replace my smoke detector because it was beeping and it cost me $565. Well, I already know. Listen, I'm in the industry. I already know it don't cost that amount, right? And neither did they have permission to do it. So that's a conversation that we'll have up front, because I usually don't make it the tenant's responsibility to take care of maintenance repairs that I'm responsible for. So tenants sometimes do want to do that. It just depends on your level of communication with your landlord. It depends on what's in writing, what's in your lease. And so I can't say definitely yes. I can't say definitely no. I would opt to say, look at what's in writing, what you agreed to. Because if you sign a lease saying that you're responsible, then yes. But if you sign a lease saying that the landlord is responsible, then make it the landlord's responsibility. Or if you feel like that's the direction you have to go, then go ahead and let the landlord know, listen, I've contacted you on June the 1st. I contacted you July 13th. I contacted you in August as well as September about a garbage disposal backing up, right? And if the landlord seems to be negligent and not making the repair because you've attempted to reach the landlord, they didn't make the repair, now you feel like you have to take care of it to make sure that you can live in a rental property that's comfortable, for you and your family, then by all means, do what you have to do. Just make sure that it's documented. All right, so let me go back to some of the comments here. Dr. Baker, you said that baby don't play with her tool belt. She gets the job done. I really do. You already know. Hey, Lynn, thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in. You said, do you have permission from the landlord in advance to get the repairs done first? To get the repairs first. That's a great question. And so this goes back to the comment or the question about the tenant making repairs and then asking the landlord on the back end. So definitely get permission from the landlord first. Great response, Lynn. Thank you so much. Okay, so Pete, you're answering my question. No, that tenant is far from quality. Okay, all right, that's understandable. I just wanted to make sure you wasn't talking about my quality of work. All right, per your comment from the tenant with the high water bill. Okay, Lynn, you said, is it a licensed contractor? Get receipts. Absolutely. I always put emphasis on, if a tenant must have repairs completed at the property, make sure that it is a licensed contractor. I had a tenant. I've talked about this tenant from hell, right? Previously. And this tenant from hell, for whatever reason, she didn't contact the owner to say, hey, listen, the garbage disposal is not working correctly. No, as a matter of fact, the tenant, at the time she moved in, she did not have a garbage disposal. Okay. So she asked maybe her boyfriend or somebody that she knows, somebody really close to her. She asked somebody to install the garbage disposal. Well, they did not install it properly. The wires were not properly grounded. The wires had black tape. It was a hot mess, to say the least. I wish I could show you a picture of it. And so something happened, and the tenant, she contacted the landlord like years later to say, my garbage disposal isn't working. And so the owner's like, the property doesn't have a garbage disposal. So they said, well, Karissa, can you please go and take care of this problem for this tenant? We don't like to deal with her. She's always nasty. So I went there, took pictures of it. It was really bad. When I tell you it was duct tape everywhere, it was like the wires were not properly grounded. It was really, really bad. And so what happened is that it probably wouldn't have been discovered if she didn't complain. But she complained that the garbage disposal wasn't working properly. Now, the problem wasn't so much as the garbage disposal. The problem was that she poured a lot of grease down the drain, and over the years, the grease clogged the pipe. Okay, so let me just park right here for a second. Tenants, landlords, anybody, doesn't matter, whoever you are. If you have a property and you have a garbage disposal, pouring grease down the drain will eventually cause it to clog up. Grease does not go in the pipe, okay? It doesn't go down the drain. Here's what I do know about pipes, right? So I'm going to use this bottle of water, and I don't have a cup, but I'm going to use this container, all right? So this bottle represents the faucet. Now, I'm going to use this container as if it is the pipe, right? The faucet, the drain. All right. So when you turn the faucet on, water goes into the sink. It goes down the drain, right? That's a consistent flow of water. Nothing will stop water from flowing unless something is down in the pipe. Now, if something is in here and it begins to back up, then that denotes that there's a problem. But water will usually flow. Nothing stops water from flowing. So this is why you do not want to pour grease down the drain. If it's just water, if it's water, not a problem. If it's you have a garbage disposal and you have like some light food or something like that, not a problem. But here's the thing. The garbage disposal is not a trash can. It's not meant to have all this food to go down as if it's a trash can. That's not what the garbage disposal is for. And I know a lot of people say, oh, well, it's a garbage disposal. I don't want the food, so I'm going to just pour it down there. I've seen eggshells down there. I've seen banana peels down there. I've seen orange peelings and all that stuff down there. It's not supposed to be in a garbage disposal. It's not supposed to go in the sink. Put that stuff in the trash, okay? And so at that rental property, like I said, this young lady had been pouring grease down the drain for so long. And it became a problem. And so it was her responsibility to take care of that plumbing bill. And that was a really costly plumbing bill because a plumber had to come out. So they snaked it. And so that's the term that a plumber will use. There's a device that goes down into the pipe that they use to clog it. And so sometimes grease may come out depending on if it's a sink, if it's a toilet. Sometimes toys will come out. Sometimes a toothbrush will come out. I've seen a hairbrush come out. You never know what's going to come out that pipe. And so please be careful what you're putting down there, okay? Great comment, Lynn. Thank you so much. Lauren, you said, what if the light bulb and globe are broken at the start of tenancy? That is a great question. And that does happen. This is why I share with landlords as well as tenants. Conduct a move-in inspection together. Identify the issues that are pre-existing so that those repairs can be taken care of. Because if not, the landlord can say, oh, well, it wasn't like that when you moved in, although it could have been. And so documentation is everything. And sometimes that does happen. Thank you so much, Pete. I do appreciate that. You said you would never come for me. I know that's right, Pete. All right. And can you put a ceiling on the amount that you as the landlord will pay for the tenant? Absolutely. Lynn, you already know, I've shared before that my lease package is at least 61 pages long. And it is that lengthy because I'm very detailed and I want it to be very clear to anybody who looks at my lease, the responsibility of the tenant as well as my responsibility. So If I'm going to say, tenant, you're going to be responsible for maintenance repairs up to $250, and anything over that, I'll take care of it. It just depends on the type of property. If it's a home, if it's a single family home, if it's a large single family home, or if it's an apartment or a condo. Sometimes um, the stipulations could change depending on the type of property, but absolutely, you can go ahead and put a ceiling on it. But think about it. Okay, so if it's a single family home, Lynn, and let's say worst case scenario, you have a 4-bedroom single family home, 2-car garage, fairly new. It was built in 2018. You lived in a property, you decided to relocate, but the tenant moved in and it's still fairly new, right? So you already know that you have an idea of the amount that it costs to maintain and upkeep that rental property. You can put a ceiling on. And I would definitely ask that landlords consider worst case scenario. If something was to happen, do you want to be responsible? Do you want the tenant to be responsible? Put it in writing. Communicate that to the tenant so that they will know, okay, well, it's my responsibility to take care of maintenance up to $200 or up to $300. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I do know. He who pays attention. And so usually when you have a tenant who pays and they're responsible for maintenance and repairs, they will do a better job in many cases. There are some exceptions to that rule, however, but usually he who pays or she who pays attention. They're going to pay attention to the cost. They're going to pay attention to the damage because they're responsible for paying out of pocket. All right, so let me go to these last couple of comments, and then I'm going to go back to my third tip for tenants. Does this also stand for commercial properties? Can you expound on that a little bit more, Dr. Baker? I want to come back to that. And usually when it comes to commercial rental property, same thing applies. What's in writing? No different, because commercial tenants should have a lease. And in the lease, it should be clear in terms of responsibilities. Who is responsible for repairs? And with the commercial lease, it could be a net lease, it could be a triple net lease. And so it just depends on what's in writing, but absolutely. All right, Pete, you said when tenants pour grease down the drain, you have to snake, you had to snake a woman's drain out several times. Grease and water don't mix. Absolutely. Grease and water will never mix. Grease and oil floats. Absolutely. So, Pete, in that situation where I shared how this young lady's rigged garbage disposal was backed up, well, the pipe was backed up, grease and oil, I mean, it was, everything was just floating. Nothing would go down. That's how bad it was. And so she said, oh, well, that's not grease. It was no grease in there in the picture that I sent you. And so, because sometimes people don't realize grease changes its form, it doesn't look the same, right? And so I had to highlight, I circled in the picture that she sent me that the stuff that was floating, that was on the top of the water, that those large pockets of brown stuff that was at the top of the water, I highlighted that and I circled it, and I did inform her. I had to educate her to let her know that that's in fact grease. All right. So the evidence was in the picture that she sent. So that was her bill. All right. So let me get to my third point because I want to wrap this up. So this is the third tip for tenants. If you have a good relationship with your landlord, okay, your landlord will be less likely to raise the rent. If you have a good relationship with your landlord, they may say, you know what? We value you as a tenant. You've been such a great tenant. You haven't been a pain in the butt. You haven't given us a lot of headaches. You haven't really complained about issues, and you've really taken good care of the property. Although we're giving all of our tenants an increase, we're not going to raise your rent. Or maybe we will give you an increase, but we're not going to raise it to the max. And so these are sometimes the outcome when you have quality relationships with your landlord. And so it requires tenants putting skin in the game, right? Be a good tenant. Take good care of the property. And even if you've never had your own place before, here's what I would say to that. Make sure that how you're treating that rental property or how that property looks, it looks like it did when you first moved in. That's the simplest way to make sure that you're doing the right thing. And so when it comes to cleaning up as a tenant, um, don't let stains build up on the floor. Don't let stains build up in the tub or on the counter. Don't allow dishes to build up and you wash dishes 5, 6 weeks later. That is nastiness at the worst level. Okay. Go ahead and clean up. Go ahead and sweep the floor. Go ahead and wipe the tub out, after you finish taking a shower. Okay. Not just a bath, but a shower. And and maybe this is not for tenants. Maybe this just is for people who just don't know. When you take a shower, your dead skin and dirt and your dead skin cells and all that stuff, it's in a tub, right? So go ahead and clean the tub, because if not, over a period of time, stuff will build up. I know that I've had a lot of tenants over the years who complained about mold and mildew in the bathroom. And in many cases, it was dirt. It was dirt buildup, dirt and soap scum. True story. One tenant, because she was a good tenant, I went into her apartment. She complained that she had mold. I asked her, I said, well, what are you using to clean the tub? I asked her if her kids are cleaning the tub. So she showed me what she cleaned the tub with. Now, I'm also, in addition to being a really good housing provider and landlord and property management educator, I am also a housing inspector. So when I went in, I'm looking around at the issues that she complained about. When I looked at the tub, I realized it's not mold, it's dirt and soap scum buildup. So she showed me what she used to clean her tub. So I asked her to give it to me, and I asked her to give me a rag. Now, on this day, I wasn't dressed to do any work. I was in my cute little suit with my nice little stilettos on. I didn't even have on tennis shoes that day because I wasn't prepared to do that type of work, right? But I recognized that she needed to be educated. So I had no problem putting a towel down, getting on my knees, and I actually scrubbed an area of her tub with the cleaning product that she had. And I showed her how to clean her tub. And I told her that it was not mold, but it was definitely dirt and soap scum buildup. And she was so surprised. She was surprised, number one, that I got down on my knees in my cute little dress with my stilettos on and I cleaned a spot in her tub. Listen, for me, let me save myself the headache. So I will educate my tenants. Let me help my tenants to help themselves, because when they can help themselves, they're helping me. And so I believe in educating the rental community as a whole. This is why I do what I do. I educate landlords, but I also educate tenants, because an educated rental community, I promise you, it works better when we all work together. All right. So are there any other comments, questions, any last minute questions that you have, whether it's from Facebook or YouTube? I definitely want to make sure that I am answering all of your questions for you today. New office lease. Dr. Baker, I'm reading your comment. New office lease. The toilet has been broken for a few months and the employees had to use the hall restroom. Okay, that's a no-no. So Dr. Baker, in that situation, I will reach out to the owner or the property manager to convey that there's an issue, take pictures, let them know that it's not sanitary. Listen, if they do not fix it, there is an inspection department in every jurisdiction that I know of. And if there's not, please let me know. Usually there is an inspector's office. There is somebody that governs that property. And also there should be a rental license, a business license, or some sort of something on file for that business. And so if the owner is not doing what they're supposed to do, okay, go ahead and document it and get yourself some help, some legal help from maybe the city, the council, or whoever, to make sure that's taken care of, because that's nastiness. That's nastiness that should not be going on. Hey, Dee, thank you so much, beautiful, for tuning in. Thank you all for your time. Thank you for tuning in today. This is what I do each and every Monday, right here on my Facebook and my YouTube channel. I share information to help landlords as well as tenants. Please do share this information with others so that people can hear the same information you've heard today. Please make sure that you are sharing, because people need to understand, landlords as well as tenants need to understand um, what they need to do to maintain a rental property. It's not all the tenant's responsibility, but it's not always the landlord's responsibility. And if you have questions, please feel free to inbox me. Let me share my email address because I want to make sure that you are able to contact me. I want to make sure that you are able to reach me. So again, thank you so much for tuning in today. This is my email address. You can email me with your questions. You can inbox me with your questions or comments. All right. Email address is karissaspann@gmail.com. I am a landlord and tenant coach. It is a pleasure for me to share information. This is what I do each and every Monday, 7:30 p.m. right here on this channel. Whether you're watching on Facebook, whether you're watching on YouTube, let me say thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time. My time is up. I hope to see you all next week.